Hi, and welcome to Sunday with Mike. On today's show, we're going to cover how to make your very own wireless remote speaker, a small Behringer mixer, discuss what EQs really do, and finally, the mystery behind DC offsets. So grab yourself a cup of coffee and join me. I'll be right back. So I've got my coffee and I hope you have yours. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wished that you could have a remote speaker way over there somewhere, but running a cable to that spot was too difficult for whatever reason? What if you needed to have sound inside and outside or in multiple rooms? All of this can be quite expensive, but there is an affordable, cheaper alternative if you happen to already own a good quality wireless microphone system. It doesn't really matter what brand you like. This is not about brand, it's just about the concept, as long as you have a professional microphone system with good or great quality. So what am I talking about? If you take the belt pack part of a wireless microphone system, which is a transmitter. It's the same exact thing as the handheld. Both of these are transmitters, and in most units you can't use them at the same time. It's one or the other, right? So here's what happens is you take this, and instead of using a microphone that would normally connect to the input of this and then clip on with a little lav microphone or tie clip, you use something that's called an instrument cable. And now, with some spiffy adapters, you end up with something pretty special. So here's what it all looks like. This big conglomeration of cables here. One end of this is the little, I think it's called a TAF or T4F. It's something. But it's a special Shure connector, and most of the belt packs use it. And that's going to go directly into that, just like that, right? So now, what's on the other end of all of this ends up being two RCAs. So this is going to plug into my controller or my mixer out. It's going to go into this transmitter. And then on the other end, wherever the speaker happens to be located, my receiver is going to be sitting up on top of it. I'm going to come out of the 1/4-inch jack in the back and go right into the self-powered speaker. So that's my wireless connection. So I got the transmitter sending the signal, and I've got the receiver receiving it, going right into my self-powered speaker, and now I have a remote speaker. It's not as challenging as you think, and it just requires that you get the right adapters for your particular system. So let me see where I am in the grand scheme of things. I think that pretty well covers it. The one thing that you do want to do, I want to encourage you to do, two things. Always, never, ever, ever run one of these without fresh batteries. You need this antenna to be as high as it can be and straight if you can help it. And you want this transmitter to be at its maximum power to eliminate dropouts and any noise getting into your remote speaker. So always use fresh, brand new batteries every time you use this little setup, and then try to get this antenna up as high as you can. Most of these have some sort of a signal indicator, and you want to make sure that you don't overload this. You need it to be, receiving good signal quality and level without distorting it, because if you overload this, then it's going to sound horrible at the speaker side. So I think that will pretty much take care of it. I know it sounds really complicated, but it's not, and you can do this with a good quality mic system. So give it a try, but do try it at home before you try it at a gig. Set up a speaker, set this thing up, wire up your cables, get what you need, and give it a try. And post some results down in the comments. I want to know how it worked out for you. I'll be right back.
DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
You know, every once in a while I get a client who will ask me if we can add some extra microphones to one of my DJ events. It could be so that people could sing along with some karaoke, or musicians will be tying into my equipment for a ceremony, or sometimes extra people wanting to do toast, all kinds of different reasons. So my normal controller that I use on a day in and day out basis has 2 microphone inputs, but the second one is not the greatest quality in the world for some reason. I don't know why, but it's not. It seems to be a general theme with controllers. I wish that they could do better on those. But in the meantime, I started using a small Behringer mixer for these type of requests. Here's what this thing looks like. As you can see, it's very small and compact. It's lightweight. It has 12 channels, and it's a little tabletop mixer that is not going to take up much room at all. And since it has 4 studio quality preamps, channels 1 through 4 with either 1/4 inch or XLRs, it's very versatile. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but it has some built-in effects, including reverb, which is a really nice touch if you've never added that anywhere. Here's what it looks like all packed up in my case, ready to go. I bought this case from Lowe's Home Improvement Store a few years back, and used the little compartments that came with it, and put a place for my headphones, the power supply, and of course the mixer itself. What's not shown is a little small black towel that sits on top of the mixer to fill up that little bit of air gap, so that, and you could do the same thing with a piece of foam, but it just keeps the mixer from bouncing. So the next time you need to add some extra microphones to your setup, give one of these little mini mixers a try. Many companies make them. They work out great, and they give you that extra flexibility when I need it without having to lug around a bunch of large and heavy equipment around. Hi, and welcome back. You know, in our often day-to-day jargon, we talk about different topics, and most people only have a vague idea of what some of these things are. Take, for example, EQ. What does that really stand for? If you said equalizer, well, you're right. But let's go a little deeper than that. Can you tell me what it does and how it does it? Why do you need it? Can you abuse it? I mean, we could spend literally hours on this subject just talking about this one thing alone if we really wanted to dive in that deep and learn that much about the subject. I feel that most DJs don't want to go that deep, but they do lack the basic understanding of its real function and how it can help or even hurt your overall sound quality. My definition of an EQ would be it's a method of shaping and coloring the sound to be more pleasant to the listener. Wow, shaping and coloring sound. What do I mean by that? So we put together some slides for you. You know, most DJ equipment has a 3-band EQ on the mixers and controllers, which is very limiting. So that's 1 knob for bass, 1 knob for the mid-range, and 1 for the treble. This slide shows us a 10-band EQ that is set to flat, meaning that if you notice the knobs, they're all in the center. We're not altering the sound anywhere. What comes in is exactly the same thing that's going out, and this is what that waveform would look like. I'm going to use the song Uptown Funk that everybody knows for these slides, so that if you ever wanted to compare this to your results, you could see what it looks like. So if you notice on the left, that's 20 hertz. That's very, very low frequency. And on the right is 20,000 hertz, which is extremely high. And in fact, this range is said to be below and above the normal human hearing range. So the bass is on the left side, and if you notice, it's much higher. It's much louder and more dominant than the high frequency stuff way over on the right side of the slide. So what is that? What happens when you crank up the bass too much? Well, the waveform here will actually start to become what's called a square wave. Look at the top of the loud peaks here, and you're going to see that they're square. They don't come to a point like a mountain and drop back down again. You can see that on the left and the right of the big squares, but the big squares, the big peaks that are squared off at the top, that's the problem. Those things were designed for nice, pretty sine waves that has a nice point at the top and the bottom. And what's going to happen is by boosting the bass to this level where it actually starts to clip and flatten out the tops, you're going to overdrive and overheat the equipment. The only question is, what will fail first? The speaker voice coil or the amplifier inside? Like I said before, this topic can get pretty deep, so I'm going to leave it here, but I do suggest that you do more reading and learning on this subject. The more you know, the better your rig will sound, and the longer your equipment will last. Hi, I wanted to share one of my recent experiences with you. I turned on a column that I normally have hidden in Virtual DJ 7 called Length. This allows you to see how long each song is while you're browsing the folders. You know, everything displayed as I expected it to, except that some of my songs had an exclamation point at the very end of the time. So 3 minutes and 50 seconds, and it had an exclamation. And I was curious why only some of my songs had that showing at the end of the time. So I asked around, and I ran into all kind of answers from the different groups. Some people said it meant that the song was a variable bit rate instead of a constant bit rate. So I checked that theory out. No, that's not right. They were all constant bit. Someone else said it was a special format. No, they're all regular MP3s. So it turns out that none of those were correct, but I kept looking and hunting and trying to figure it out. One of the replies was a direct quote from the manual that said that the file was either corrupt or damaged in some way. At first, I wasn't really buying this since it played just fine in Virtual DJ, and there were no pops or clicks or anything else that I could hear. So I decided to load one of these songs into my audio editing software and see if I could spot anything in there. That way, and no, nothing. It looked great and it played fine too. So now this was really bugging me. This is just the perfectionist part of me wanting to know, why is this doing this? So what is Virtual DJ seeing that I don't see? So, well, on a hunch, I checked for something called DC offset, and sure enough, that was the problem. There was an offset, ever so small, so I removed it, saved the file, reloaded it into Virtual DJ, and ta-da, it was fine. The exclamation point was gone. So I posted in those groups that I had previously posted in asking for help that I had found my problem and thanked everyone for trying to assist, and then I was hit with, what's DC offset? I just assume that most people know what this is. So trust me, this is much easier to explain in this video than it was via text on the internet. It's really tough to explain by text only. So I thought this would be a good topic for us to talk about. Sine waves, this is, excuse my little drawing here, but sine waves go above and below this reference line of 0. And so when the 0 reference line isn't sitting on 0, the crossing point is either above or below the real reference line, then you have what's called a DC offset. So it can either be a positive if it's above it or a negative if it's below it. Professional editing software suites can remove this offset and center the file back correctly where it's supposed to be on 0 if desired. This is usually caused by ripping CDs on cheap CD-ROM units that are inside of towers and computers from way back when, especially when they first came out and people started ripping CDs. The equipment has gotten much better today. So that's going to be a wrap for 2017. This is number 63. It's our final show for 2017. We're going to be off for 2 weeks and we'll be back in 2018. I'm asking you to please share the show with your friends. Give me your thoughts down in the comments section. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up. So from Terry and I, Happy holidays.